from Leroy. We both spontaneously just started clapping the game. That was beautiful Hearthstone. Very well-deserved qualifier now representing China. But again, big game coming up. Pavel, with one of the most storied streaks in HCT, has his undefeated streak in terms of qualifying through and winning tournaments on the line. And it's going to be his trusted double Reno lineup going up against Yolsik. And again, the Pirate Warrior is going to get through. It's the Reno Mage that is being banned away from Pavel.
Yeah, absolutely huge here. And both players were part of HCT 2016 last year, but with very different results. Yolsik being knocked out in the group stages of the final stage of the tournament, and Pavel going all the way to win and become the world champion. Great series we've got coming up.
Yeah, fun fact and a lesson in faulty statistics for you. 1/3 of the players who have left up Pirate Warrior have been successful in winning the series. The problem with that is that in one of the series, both Pirate Warriors were left up, and that's the only time it's been successful. So we are yet to see whether Yolsik's strategy of leaving the Pirate Warrior up one-sided is going to pay dividends for him.
Yeah, and we can find out right now as the players are ready. So first, from Hong Kong, competing to continue his spot in this tournament, it's Yolsik. And his opponent from Russia, the current world champion, it's Pavel.
It's go time! Pavel versus Yolsik!
Yeah, I'm a little bit sad that I lose match, but I think that I played it perfectly. It's definitely bring a little bit more pressure, but I'm still in tournament, so I just need to get 3 wins in a row and then I get a spot in the World Championship. Don't remember Yolsik lineup exactly, but all I can say about him that he's very funny guy. He also played in last World Championship.
My next match is against Pavel. I'm excited, and although he is the world champion, I think I can beat him. I think I can do it.
Pavel versus Yolsik! Let's see what you got!
That's right. This one's going to be a doozy. Pavel versus Yolsik. My name is TJ, and I'm joined by my partner in crime. That's Admirable. This one couldn't get any better.
That's right. 2 world champion competitors in 2016 having to face off in the lower bracket. One of these two, their tournament run comes to an end this match.
Yeah, you wouldn't have expected this looking at the groups, as Yolsik, you know, impressed a lot of people. His play in the Summer Championship of last year wasn't spectacular, but he impressed a lot of people and showed up at the World Championship. And people had a different opinion of him. He's obviously worked hard to get to this point, and in the Asia Pacific Winter Playoffs, he was able to make it here to the Bahamas. But Pavel, I mean, if he were to 0-2 out of the Winter Championship, putting an end to his HCT streak that he's been tearing through in the past couple months, a lot of people would be surprised and disappointed because they would have less packs.
That depends on who you are, I suppose. I mean, I chose Yolsik as my champion.
I know. And a lot of other people did too. You're not the only one. But here we go, getting into it. Pavel's Priest versus Yolsik's Rogue. This is a little bit of an interesting Rogue deck. It's one of the, you know, yesterday we saw a lot of Miracle. Today we're seeing a whole heap of different types of Water Rogue, if you want to call those decks. We saw Menagerie Rogue, Stealth Rogue.
Yeah, this one kind of fits into the Finja and Stealth package that's in there. Yolsik has brought 2 Silent Knights. He's got 2 Shadow Sensei Finja package in his deck. Now, the difference between him and the last one of these that we saw is he doesn't have the Curator package. So there's a lot less fancy stuff going on in this list and a lot more straight-to-the-point style of play. In this matchup, if he can land a Shadow Sensei at a timely moment, at a timely moment, that's a big step up for him, because against Dragon Priest, the 4 power minions are really what gives them a big problem, because that means they have to fight them honestly through combat. Typically, Pavel's dragon minions are going to be very health efficient. But Yolsik's got plenty of ways to shore that up. He's got a couple copies of Backstab. He's got SI7 Agent. He's got some Eviscerates in here. He's got plenty of ways to make up that advantage and then continue to fight on board. But for all intents and purposes, Yolsik is the aggressor in this matchup. He's going to have to find a window of opportunity to close the game.
A lot of it from Pavel boils down to how good his start is. If he can get stuff on the board quickly before Yolsik can, then that's pretty much going to be, you know, his hope in this matchup. He picks up a couple of pretty bad pre-spells to start things off with his Swashbuckler.
Well, they're very interesting pre-spells, I'd say. Convert, I don't think, is necessarily bad in this matchup. I actually think he can find some reasonable spots to get that active and maybe find something useful. The Resurrect, on the other hand, his pool has been diluted with 3 1-1s so far. So Resurrect is representing very little value thus far. But I could totally see Convert being a useful card. It's going to put a copy of one of Pavel's minions into Yolsik's hand for 2 mana. It's a card that's tough to use, but in a matchup like this one, you expect it to be a bit of a grind. So it's difficult to play that card because that won't often be the case in your matchups. But in this one, certainly is.
Yeah, the one thing that worries me is that a lot of Pavel's deck relies on synergy. And does Yolsik have that synergy? I mean, he's already got his own synergies that he has to worry about with Murlocs, Stealth Minions, and Pirates.
It's definitely hard, but
it's a real party.
There is Azure Drake in Yolsik's deck, so maybe a spot like that. Cabal Talon Priest is really one of the minions I'm looking at that Convert would be okay with.
Yep, but right now he's got to get through this 9 health Twilight Drake. No saps in these faster rogue lists, the rogue lists that are looking to get on board and use those synergies to really run you over.
Yeah, a lot more mid-range.
Yeah.
Are these styles.
Now he does have a way to get through it, but it's going to take a lot of resources in order to do so.
Yeah, so he's going to go ahead and use SI7 Agent to take care of this, which means Silent Knight will likely stay silent for another turn.
One thing that he does have going for him is that Shadow Sensei and the Silent Knight do put those 4/4s on the board. Silent Knight's going to be able to trade over one of these minions and stay around as a problematic minion for Priest to deal with. So Pavel does need to try and improve his board position quite heavily. He knows the list. He knows what's threatening him with this Silent Knight on board, especially since there was no attack. He knows that Shadow Sensei could be a big deal.
Yeah, the attack here I think would be foregone whether or not Yolsik had something in his hand to do with it. He just would have been making a pretty big sacrifice with the 1/1 and the 2/3 on board, but it certainly raises suspicion. When your opponent doesn't attack, that's the kind of play that will bring that card to your mind at that point. It's all. It like reminds you of itself because the synergy is so obvious with how it works. It's pretty clear.
He didn't attack with that stealth minion. I wonder what cards he has in his deck that interact with stealth minions.
Oh, that's right. Shadow Sensei.
Does serve as a good reminder. Great point there.
Interesting spot here from Pavel. He's going to slow down a lot here. Chooses to use Wormrest Agent over Azure Drake, healing up his Cabal Talon Priest. I think this is actually really smart from Pavel because in the event Shadow Sensei did show up, Azure Drake would just bite the dust. Instead, now he puts Yolsik to the test. Does he want to use Shadow Sensei in this spot? If he does, he's got to get through the Wormrest Agent. That'll open up an opportunity for Pavel to respond. It's really clever.
Now the question is, once the Shadow Sensei comes out, will Pavel be able to sort of recover the board position? Because 2 4/4s on board, most likely Yolsik's going to take out this 1/1 and re-dagger.
All I could hear from earlier was you saying this is like a really good arena deck.
It does look like it at times.
That's what it looks like, yeah. And there's the Cabal Talon Priest now added to Yolsik's hand. He wants these minions to fight on board for quite a while. He's going to get a chance to.
Yeah.
My shield for Argus.
Defender of Argus.
That's exactly what Pavel was setting up for here, too.
Yeah,
this is really smart.
Defender of Argus can sometimes be a card that's tough to get full value from, especially in a matchup where it does come down to a lot of board fights. Straight up board combat.
Well, here's another question for you. Does Pavel take the trade here, or does he just push face? I mean, Yulsik's down to 14 right now. And again, there's no sap in here. He's already seen a backstab. He's seen an SI7 agent. I love this play here from Pavel.
Pavel actually made the first attack with the Twilight Whelp and then just stared over at Yulsik, trying to gauge his reaction. But Yulsik barely ever shows much. He looks the same whether or not he's losing, winning, eating, sleeping, running, walking, sitting, standing.
You're observing Pavel quite a bit. Or I'm sorry, Yulsik quite a bit.
Don't ask how I know all these things. It's none of your business. But he's not getting much. And, you know, Pavel, it looks like, you know, he's using the player's close proximity throughout this tournament to try and gauge reactions, but he's not getting anything. One thing he is getting is a lot of damage in.
I honestly did not expect Pavel to play it this way, and seeing it happen, this was just such a good alternative.
I mean, if Yulsik wants to remove these, he's going to have to take 4 more damage. Pavel is actually getting close to having enough damage. If he picks up another 2, then he's got enough. That's a Blackwing Corruptor.
Yeah, those last couple points of damage could be a bit tricky. I'm thinking Holy Nova is pretty reasonable here.
Yeah.
As maybe a defensive mechanic. I mean, he can take out either the Shadow Sensei or the Cabal Talon Priest in this spot, heal his minions back up. But again, we've seen him play fairly aggressively thus far. I'm curious how much merit there is to simply attacking face using Holy Nova, and then anytime you draw Blackwing Corruptor, game.
He's got 19 cards remaining. So it's roughly a 10% chance that's going to increase every turn that he draws a Blackwing Corruptor with 2 left in his deck. And he's going for it.
This is due to the fact that Yulsik has no natural ways to protect his own health total. If he wants to stop this, he's going to have to get something off Shaku. He's going to have to get something off of a Swashbuckler.
It's usable Swashbuckler, so it's just Shaku at this point.
He's got one Defender of Argus that can defend him from combat. But for the rest of the game, Yulsik has to kill every single minion. And all Pavel needs to do is draw a Blackwing Corruptor.
It's going to come down to a race, but Yulsik has a lot more to worry about than just pushing face damage because, like you said, he has to kill every minion. Maybe he can leave up a Netherspite Historian.
That's about it.
That's about it.
1 power minions he doesn't necessarily have to worry about immediately. But outside of that, everything's got to go.
And one mistake for him could spell the end. If he mis-sequences something and doesn't have enough damage on board to kill, or if he sort of counts his dagger as a way for him to clear something off the board. And this is it. He's got to make pretty inefficient trades in order to just take stuff off the board. And
that's an operative, it looks like.
Operative can pick up some damage as well. Let's see. Eviscerate and Bluegill Warrior. Both of those are going to do the trick, and Pavel takes game number 1.
I love how he thought about it for a moment. And he's like, yeah, I like the Bluegill.
Yeah. Just double checking to make sure that was enough, but a great start for Pavel. Took the aggressive line and it paid off.
And that's in a matchup where Yulsik wants to be the aggressor. Pavel very quickly got control of the board, turned the corner, and just put the heat on Yulsik. He recognized that there was one turn where Yulsik didn't pressure his minions that much, and if he can't kill him now, how's he going to kill him later? Damage. Go.
Damage, damage, damage. That's what it's about. Pavel takes the win in game number 1. And a lot of us know quite a bit about Pavel, but if you're new to competitive Hearthstone, don't worry, we got you covered. Let's get to know Pavel.
Well met.
Hi, my name is Pavel. I'm from Russia and I'm 19 years old. My favorite player is me. Before I play tournament, I try not drink too much water, so I will not need go to the toilet in the match. The best thing about playing in HTC is winning.
Interesting choice of a favorite player from Pavel, but I like it.
We talked to him before this event started, and the misplay that he made versus Life Coach, 1 round away from making it to the World Championships. We asked him what was happening in that moment, what was going through your head. He said, I really had to go to the bathroom.
And that has haunted him forever. Admirable referring to 2015, where Pavel had a chance to make a big run. He was hyped up by a lot of players and casters. That was one of the most stacked championships we've ever seen. Was in the European 2015 championship. You know, if you're interested in it, go back and look up the lineup that was part of that event, and just go back and watch the VODs if you can, because that was some of the highest level Hearthstone that you'll ever watch. But hopefully it's the same case for this match. Pavel and Yolsik both fighting for their tournament life.
Yeah, Yolsik going to go back on the Stealth Rogue here. And a really interesting thing is that Pirate Warriors left up for Pavel. This is considered to be the strongest deck in Standard at the moment. And rightfully so. It packs a ton of damage. Pavel's game plan against Yolsik is just reckless aggression. Again, Yolsik has one natural way to protect himself. It's a single Defender of Argus. Outside of that, it's going to boil down to whether or not Pavel can get out 30 points of damage faster than Yolsik can. He's got Finley with Steady Shot. He's got Fiery War Axe. He's got Arcanite Reaper, Bloodsail Cultist, Bloodsail Raider. Yolsik draws Patches. This is a really tough matchup for Yolsik. Possibly one of the worst matchups in the game for him.
And this is a comfort zone for Pavel. If you remember back, Pavel actually lost his first round in the World Championship last year.
He keeps looking at Yolsik over and over again.
He's looking for something. I don't think he's getting anything, though. It was kind of funny. Pavel was actually doing the same thing last year. If you remember back to opening week, the players were still pretty close, but a little bit further away. And when a player would return their glare to Pavel, he would giggle. Go back and watch. I promise you, it happened. Every time someone would return his stare, he would giggle. And that can really instill fear in a man. When you're knee-deep in a Hearthstone match, you look up at your opponent and he giggles at you.
Throughout the weekend, we'd be hanging out with the players. And Pavel would look at him from across the room and go, "Be careful." And then just start giggling. He's a very playful guy.
That's terrifying.
What's terrifying is this 5/3 Bloodsail Raider has to be dealt with. And the follow-up to it.
I mean, he insta-picked that Steady Shot. Pavel, I mean, most Hearthstone players that have touched ladder in the past 4 months have played hundreds of games of Pirate Warrior. This is a comfort zone for a lot of players. Yolsik took the risk of leaving it up, knowing that it was very likely, regardless of the deck that he chose, was going to lose. Pirate Warrior is a deck that can beat anything. And with Patches drawn, I mean, you're putting a 1/1 charge in your deck with the hopes that it's going to come out for free.
When it doesn't come out for free, it's not very good.
No, not at all. But that's the risk you take with a card with that much power level. Now he's not developing anything. So this gives Pavel free reign to just keep pushing damage.
And that's a Dread Corsair. That is probably the best draw in Pavel's deck right now. It will allow him to get Dread Corsair and Bloodsail Cultist online, upgrades that Fiery War Axe, pushes 4 more damage, and he's just going to be smooth sailing through this one. Yolsik does have a way to clear this, but every single turn, Pavel has been forcing Yolsik to have answers to this. At one stumble, and that's going to be it. But this is a very key turn here for Yolsik. If he can stop the pressure and get something rolling on his own, maybe he can get there. But he's probably going to have to draw back-to-back Cold Bloods if he's going to have a chance.
Or Defender of Argus.
Defender of Argus is also a big one. But
Defender of Argus on a Silent Knight combined with Shadow Sensei could maybe do it.
There's no way he's getting there.
No. Another Dread Corsair picks up. That's just another minion that's just going to keep threatening. And Pavel's just going to play mana efficiently here, equip this Arcanite Reaper. He knows there's no weapon destruction in the deck. And Leroy, at this stage, is a terrible draw.
Yeah, Yolsik just taking damage at will from Pavel, basically. It's just charge damage after charge damage, weapon damage after weapon damage. There's not really an effective way for Yolsik to stop what Pavel's doing and get value from it. Everything Pavel's done has dealt damage and then forced action from Yolsik. That's what makes this such a poor matchup, is that this is one of Rogue's big weaknesses, is decks that just pretty much burn you to death.
I want Yolsik to return that glare.
I wonder.
He's got bigger things to worry about.
He does. Monitoring his life total very closely. Really, the only play I see here is the Silent Knight.
He's not getting through this one. Pavel's got 16 damage lined up over the next 2 turns.
Yeah.
And there's a single card in Yolsik's decks that stops it next turn.
And even then, by that time, Steady Shot is going to have been enough to where Yolsik is just not going to have the damage to return.
And Immortal Strike gets drawn. That's
Yeah,
checkmate.
That is checkmate. Well,
Swashbuckler into Shield Slam, into a second
Shield block,
Swashbuckler, into Shield Block, into, forget all of it. 2-0 Pavel.
I give up.
This is complete opposite of the last match that you and I cast, TJ. The last one we cast was almost 3 hours. These first 2 games have lasted about 10 minutes.
and Pavel's on the aggression train. He's feeling it right now. He is feeling it. He's playing quick. He's in his element. He's a player that loves to play quick because he likes to just rely on that instinct. He knows that he's put in the work over the past couple of years in Hearthstone. He's a grinder. Keep in mind how he qualified for the World Championship last year was through Last Call, which means he was the one of the top 8 point earners in his entire region.
I like that you mentioned Pavel's quick play and instinct, because we asked him about that. He said he doesn't want his opponent to have as much time to think.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm confident in what I'm doing. I know what I'm going to play. That's a really interesting thing to think about. We hear players all the time talk about how they slow down so they can think through everything. Pavel's speeding that up so that you have less time to think.
If you know that your instincts, or if you feel like your instincts are better than your opponents, then cutting down the amount of time that they have can be beneficial.
I'm curious about it. I mean, we've seen Pavel, have some questionable moments at times as well. Is that a result of his quick play?
It definitely could be. A lot of times you have to slow down a little bit. That was one of Tare's. When we talked to him, he said one of his biggest weaknesses was playing too quickly. And we even saw it in his match. He had something in his mind with the coin in his Pirate Warrior match, and it didn't work out. We've yet to see too much go wrong for him
You asked for it.
in the Winter Championship here, but it's definitely something to keep in the back of your mind. And now we're going to move into game number 3. Can Pavel continue this? That's going to be the question. If he could go 4-0 in the series, that would really make a statement.
Yeah, it looks like we're going to have a regame here. Pavel, I think he chose the wrong deck to start with. We got word that he would be on Warlock for this game. And we'll see what's going on in just a moment. So we'll get into this game as quickly as we can. We'd gotten word that Pavel was going to be on Warlock for this game. So just a moment till these guys jump in. Apologize for the small technical delay here.
Yeah, there's going to be restarting the game, but just a little bit of an error there. I mean, going back to it, how disappointing would it be for Yolsik to come all this way and get knocked out in the first round?
Well, any player that's going to experience that, it's not what you expect coming into it, but that's the nature of competition. At this point, you're facing off against 15 of the other best players from the season. The competition's going to be tough. The edge is going to be close. Even if you do have a favorable edge, it's often very little. The smallest details can turn that around. We've seen so many players a couple points of damage off lethal over the course of 15, 20 turn games. Something had to have gone wrong in that spot. If you're 2 damage off lethal, almost certainly that could have been picked up somewhere along the way. How much would that have changed the rest of the game, though? Maybe you don't make one trade and things turn around.
Another interesting tidbit in the World Championship last year. Yolsik qualified for it with a second-place finish.
That's right.
The only player to do so is because Handsome Guy, the player that finished above him in the Summer Championship for Asia Pacific, had already qualified for the World Championship through his win in the previous season. So maybe that shakes your confidence a bit. Maybe you start to second-guess yourself. Should I be with these guys?
I don't think so. I mean, this is Yolsik's back around after making it to World Championships. I think he played really well at the World Championships. His group was definitely tough. And here, I like the way that Yolsik's played a lot of his games. It's just to me, a little bit of it is the stealth rogue choice. We've seen that deck look a little bit shaky almost every single time. But now it's Freeze Mage versus Warlock in this game. And Freeze Mage is considered one of the hardest decks out there to play because there's so many factors to take into consideration each time you draw a card. It completely changes the dynamic of your hand. In this particular matchup, Yolsik's main goal is to just draw as many cards as he can, assemble damage from hand as quickly as possible, discount them with Emperor Thaurissan, and look to kill Pavel in a single turn. That doesn't always work that way because Pavel will occasionally have pressure. And if you look at his hand, he's got Mountain Giant and he's got Twilight Drake. Those are the two big heavy hitters in a Reno Warlock deck. Those require attention from Yolsik and oftentimes limits the amount of burn he has in his hand. As a result, he'll have to use that to not die.
One of the techs that Pavel also has in his Reno Warlock deck is Spellbreaker. Now it's an interesting one. It can do a couple of things. One, it can protect his board if it gets frozen and a Doomsayer comes out. Two, if one of these big minions gets frozen because Yolsik is trying to prevent damage, he can Spellbreaker's own minion, say a Mountain Giant, to push 8 damage. So there's a lot of things that can happen. He can also use Power Overwhelming, just as 4 damage, because then he can silence his minion back down, getting rid of the effect where it dies at the end of its turn. It's definitely interesting, and it could see play here. He could sort of do both.
Yeah, he will be using this Spellbreaker one way or the other. It's definitely top-notch priority for him to not only get presence on board, but to also make sure that his minions aren't dying with 0 value. Here, the Mountain Giant has gotten some value. It pulled a Frostbolt from Yolsik, and the reason he used Frostbolt is because in the event he sees something just like this, he can Fireball it on the following turn. Not just instantly lose the game if this gets taken care of, and then he doesn't have the damage to follow up. So heads-up play from Yolsik here, but Pavel having that Spellbreaker keeps Yolsik under a lot of pressure. That's now 2 big burn spells used.
Yeah. Now, a lot of times nowadays, Fireball is not quite as flexible of a card as you'd like, especially in the 1-turn kill combination. So Fireball is oftentimes used as removal, and that's okay. You got 2 more of them with Forgotten Torches, putting Roaring Torches in the deck. You don't need Fireballs if you get enough cards reduced to go for that kill. But it's just a little bit of extra damage, a little bit of something that Yolsik has to keep in mind as he plans out his damage in the future.
Yolsik not looking at much when it's his own turn. But as soon as oh, there you go. Oh, hang on a second. Maybe yes. He's really considering trading over this Loot Hoarder, and that would help protect his Emperor. This is a really interesting play here from Pavel. Yolsik now, the only way he's going to kill this Emperor Thaurissan is by using 2 cards. Can he afford to give away 2 Emperor activations?
That's a tough call to make. I mean, is it about the Emperor activations, or is it about giving up that damage?
He also doesn't want to put the Roaring Torches in his deck right away. Those are cards he'd ideally like to draw after he's assembled enough to really justify it. Emperor Thaurissan, a very big one that comes to mind. Alex Straza, great in this matchup to follow up against Reno, but this is looking like he's fighting a different game right now. Pavel has drawn his big threats.
Runs out on me.
And now there's just straight up no way that he can kill it. So it's coming down to what does Yolsik want to do? Does he want to take some damage this turn and develop an ice block? Does he want to use Acolyte of Pain and maybe ping it, which would risk him overdrawing one of the crucial cards in his deck? He's going to go with Doomsayer. And that's the second one.
I'm curious how Pavel's going to respond to this, because he could just simply Siphon Soul and try to keep Yolsik in a tough spot. When Emperor doesn't die, it usually means your opponent can't kill it the following turn either.
He's going to keep up the pressure. I like the way Pavel's playing this.
That hand is sick. And now that the second Doomsayer is gone, Pavel can play Sylvanas from his hand. Oftentimes Sylvanas in this matchup doesn't get played because it risks your opponent playing their own Doomsayer, killing your Sylvanas to ensure the Doomsayer steal to make sure it goes off at the start of your turn. It gives your opponent a free way to wipe your own board in a situation like that. Now that Pavel's seen both Doomsayers, he's got that extra 5/5 unlocked.
And usually it is just that, 5/5.
Yeah.
A lot of the times you just play it for pressure. And with the way Pavel's been playing this matchup, pressure is exactly how he wants to keep this match going. And keeping Emperor alive, yeah, it's a 5/5 itself, but the pressure is Pavel can play, starting to get to the point where he can play this whole hand. It's finally removed. But at what cost, Admirable?
A lot. That was a lot of cost. Pavel's hand has been discounted twice for 7 of the cards in his hand.
Now he's going to get brand value. He can brand Dark Peddler, pick up a couple 1-drops, maybe some additional burn.
Takes the Finley.
And he can Twilight Drake.
Honestly, the Finley in this matchup can play a pretty exceptional role at times. Once Pavel feels comfortable with the amount of resources he has, he's going to use Finley to look for a defensive hero power should it come to that.
If he can get armor up, not only would that be really cool,
Look at his board.
but it'd also be really...
19
Oh my
health.
goodness! The Yolsik's got ways to stop this damage for a few turns. He's got both Blizzards already. But it's about more than just stalling. He's got to find a way to win.
He's got to worry about dying this turn. That is heaps of damage.
16 damage on board, which would mean Leroy Jenkins plus Faceless, Leroy Jenkins plus Power Overwhelming would both be enough.
No Soulfire in Pavel's deck, but he did just see 2 Dark Peddlers. Or rather, 2 Dark Peddler activations. So Yolsik going to get this Acolyte down, hope that it sticks to the board, and hoping for his sake that he can find some more card draw and some more freeze effects to get this stuff down. But his hand is lacking in burn. He's unable to handle the minions that Pavel's going to be throwing at him. He's nowhere near a point where a big Alexstrasza turn can change the face of the game. Pavel's got complete control because of his early threats.
Sunfury Protector is the pickup from the life tap. Doesn't mean too much in this case. Development here is probably going to be a little bit light. He could Shadow Bolt and play Sylvanas just to get that extra 5/5 on the board. Deny multiple draws from Acolyte of Pain. He would give it 1, but he doesn't really have a choice otherwise.
He's cooking up something.
He is. When Pavel takes a long time in his turn,
It's because he's got 10 cards in his hand, and they don't cost what they normally cost.
yeah. I was going to say you should be scared, but
Interesting that he chooses to use the Refreshment Vendor in this spot.
trying to keep himself healthy, I suppose.
Well, it's his only way to heal in hand. And so if he runs into Alexstrasza this turn, how much damage does he actually have to follow up? 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I mean, he has 23 damage to follow up after that, but that's nowhere near lethal at this point. If Yolsik happened to have Alexstrasza here, it's likely he would just risk it. Then Pavel would have no heal. If Alexstrasza came out first, that means he could go back from 15 to 23.
He would actually have 29 damage because he could Leroy Jenkins Power Overwhelming and then Abyssal Enforcer with Brand on board, which would deal 6.
That's right. I forgot about that. And Reno Jackson gets... I guess if you know Reno's going to be your next draw, that's a great time to heal.
Sure.
He does have to deal with this Emperor, though. And I'm curious how he's going to deal with it.
Now that he's found Reno, Sir Finley all of a sudden becomes a prime choice on this menu of cards.
Is he really considering playing this Finley right now?
Yes.
Wow.
All right, let's
I'm
see
a bit
his
surprised by
options.
that.
Lesser heal, steady shot, dagger mastery.
There's a brand in play. He's going to get 2 Finley activations, so this first one doesn't even matter.
I don't think, does he even realize it? There's armor up. He can just take back life tap. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, all right, I'll take it.
Oh, life tap's pretty good. He picked tank up.
He's
armor up, sorry.
Yeah, he's just going to simply use Savannah's Shadow Flame and then armor up. And this is going to be a stage of the game that I don't think I've ever seen before in a Reno Warlock versus Freeze Mage matchup. Pavel now has 2 extra life, extending above 30. Where on earth does Yolsik find lethal damage through this?
This game is becoming less and less winnable for Yolsik every single turn that passes. In his mind, he has to find Reno, or sorry, Alexstrasza, and he has to hope that there's no Reno. Because he's running out of time.
And he doesn't have any card draw left.
Not in his hand, at least.
And he's got about 1.5 turns to get this done. This isn't going to happen. I think Pavel once again has Yolsik in checkmate.
What to do?
Ice Barrier just going to stall a little bit more time. But that thing's going to get chewed up real quick.
Gain 8 health is not the card Yolsik needs right now.
Ice Barrier, ping face. Wow.
I think Yolsik's got a plan in mind where he draws Arcane Intellect, picks up more burn spells, is able to live through the damage that Pavel's throwing his way, and maybe, just maybe, draws enough burn spells to finish off Pavel. This game plan right now is ignoring Reno Jackson. The fact that Pavel's got Reno Jackson, Yolsik's the only one who doesn't know that it's impossible for him to win.
It seems grim, but at this point...
Well, it's not impossible. I won't say impossible, but it's... You're looking at like 1,000,000 to 1.
Pavel's looking at lethal damage next turn. Evolved Kobold's picked up, but even the maximum amount of damage that he can deal is 21?
I think it's now officially impossible.
Gonna revise that 1,000,000 to 1 statement.
So you're saying there's a chance.
What to do? What to do?
Pavel might get too caught up staring down Yolsik. He might miss a turn. I mean, he has to develop Ice Block. That's a must. Or Blizzard.
Or both.
Or both. But at this point, there's still 3 reduced cards in the hand of Pavel. You got to be a little bit scared.
Wow. Thanks, Finley.
He did some work.
See, that's true Warlock fashion right there. Just sacrifice your own guys and draw cards.
At last.
Kazakus, if this picks up armor, then Pavel just furthers that.
Wow, a point of debate here for Pavel. He doesn't, not sure if he should take a 10 or not. I think it's 5. More armor.
Sure.
And he played Doomsayer this game. I think it's pretty unlikely he takes the friendly Resurrect at this point. That might be one of the only ways he can actually lose the game, is resurrecting his own Doomsayer.
And even then, it'd still be hard. Because Yolsik at some point in the game is going to have to find enough damage to get through armor ups. So we know Pavel picked the gain 7 armor. Not sure the second one. Probably gain 5/5, but he's just going to efficiently gain health. Not use that Kazakus potion now. Take it a little bit slower.
Yeah, the opportunity cost of his hero power is really weighing on Pavel's mind. He knows there's no way he's dying this turn. So just investing into his future turns. Pace himself. He's got Yolsik on a clock. He's identified what that is. Just make it as hard as possible for Yolsik to kill him at this point.
Yeah, Roaring Torch does not change the maximum damage since Evolved Kobold was not reduced. So it's still 20.
Got to do that twice.
What to do? What to do?
I mean, what burn
He's
does he
trying to
have left?
The thing about it is Yolsik's trying to find a collection of cards where he uses some of his burn, gets Pavel to like a weird life total that's maybe he's not tempted to play Reno Jackson on, and then follow up with the Evolved Kobold the rest of the burn, and just have that small window of opportunity. I think Pavel's too smart to fall for that. And in order for that to happen, Yolsik's going to need a little bit more time.
Yeah, a ping on the 4-1. I mean, he's not even chipping away the armor. At this stage, he may just be thinking about what comes next. Thinking about the task ahead.
Not a ton to think about in that spot. Pavel's going to have one deck left, and you got to beat it 4 times.
4 times. He's trying to remember all the cards that are in his last deck.
Now, Omega Zero, he brought a 3-0 deficit back to Game 7.
Still fell.
And I believe he could have closed Game 7 if he would have ordered his threats differently.
Oh, we know it, but Pavel even knows it. Because he was the one doing it last year.
Yeah. Just a 5-5. This is zero risk game from Pavel, and rightfully so. There's not a reason for him to take any risk whatsoever.
Shields.
And just in case Yolsik pulls a minion from nowhere. This is just not anywhere near enough damage.
Yolsik's got 22 damage from hand in a single turn.
But at the moment, even if that was Alex Straza, he would have been looking at 29 health after the armor up.
He'd have been looking at 44 health after the armor up, because Reno Jackson certainly would have come down.
Well, at this point, in Yolsik's mind, he's still under the assumption his game plan has to be he has no Reno.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that is quite literally his only hope to win this game.
And even then, probably still none. His game plan right now is, I wonder if I can remember exactly how the defeat screen looks. Because I'm going to be seeing it real soon.
And Pavel's just looking at him like, I think I got you, man.
What to do? What to do?
One block pop coming up.
Just trying to figure out how to order this. He does have enough damage on the board. He just wants to make sure that he pops the lowest health possible.
Yep, that would be any combination of 4-3-5 first, and then wait a minute. Did I do that wrong? No, it'd have been 2-3-5 first, and then 3, and then 4.
He could have popped it one.
Yeah.
But it really doesn't matter.
Inconsequential. Yeah. Hellfire is going to end it, unless there's another ice block, of course.
Which there is. Then he's going to pop that one. Then he's going to end it.
Yep. Pavel's trying to figure out if there's any way he dies at 35. Pavel considered using Reno Jackson for 2 health and just did all the math and realized, nope, can't die from here.
No. So at this stage, Yolsik will have to come back from that deficit.
What to do? What
Yolsik's actually got a bunch of experience under his belt since the Summer Championship that he took 2nd place in last year and qualified for the World Championship. He's played in some invitationals. He's played in a few small tournaments here and there. Also played in a big one called the Asia Pacific Winter Playoffs.
Yeah. He's playing in a big one right now.
So he's got the experience. He knows that, you know, what he needs to do. He knows that being calm is the most important thing. One game at a time after this one. One turn at a time. We've seen him be really good at slinging cards in the past couple months. And if it couldn't get any worse, Earthen Ring Farseer. All that hard work Yolsik's been building towards the last 2 turns.
And now Pavel's only at 32.
Such a weird game.
Lock this one up. Throw away the key.
There it is.
3-0. Pavel match point. He fell to the lower bracket, and since then has just been crushing in this set. These games haven't even looked close.
And it's one deck left for him. One deck left.
Rogue. He's got 4 opportunities with Miracle Rogue to close this one out.
Yeah. Now, we've seen it be a vulnerable spot before, but I don't know if it's going to be a vulnerable spot for him when he has 4 chances to do it.
Even if Pavel was 40% to win each game, he's still a massive favorite to win the series at that point.
Even if he's a 30% chance to win each game, he's still a favorite. Maybe not a massive favorite, but still a favorite. I mean, the math just checks out. And Pavel's, he's still giving the stare down. He's still giving it. He knows that he's the one in the driver's seat. The pressure is on Yolcik right now. Pavel, we've talked to him even at the World Championship last year about sort of his mindset when he's behind in a series. And he kind of has the idea in his head that he likes that situation because the pressure, he just likes the pressure to be off of him. He doesn't really care too much about it. And so he's got nothing to lose. So he can play that fast, risky style that he likes to play because he knows that it's not on him, really.
And that's kind of crazy to me to think about. I mean, Pavel comes into these tournaments, and folks expect him to win. His past performances, if he wins, well, of course Pavel won. If he loses, though, how did Pavel lose? That doesn't even bother him.
Nope.
He just doesn't even think about it. He says it gives him confidence that people put their faith in him. They vote him as their champion to compete in these events.
He thinks that his play was perfect, his words. He thinks that he's the best player in the tournament, and his favorite player is also himself.
Very modest.
Very. But here we go, game number 4. Can Pavel close it out with a sweep?
2 very different rogue decks fighting against one another
Oh,
here.
no!
Yolcik draws patches on turn 1. That hurts his hand so much. You compare these 2 decks side by side. Yolcik is playing a stealth rogue build. I'm not really sure what you call this, but it's much more aggressive than what Pavel's playing. He's got Finja in here. He's got Silent Knights, Shadow Sensei to help buff up his stealth minions. Tops out at Leroy Jenkins. The rest of his stuff is dedicated to dealing damage and effectively tempoing his opponent out. Pavel's playing a very standard, typical Miracle Rogue list. Trying to find big Auctioneer turns, have those explosive starts with Questing Adventurer and Edwin Van Cleef, and put his opponent to the test to have answers at every step of the way.
And Patches is not subtle. When he's in the deck, he shoots out of a dang cannon. And when he's in the hand, he doesn't shoot out of a dang cannon. Both of those are very obvious. And so Pavel, his eyes have not left Yolcik for that entire turn. He's like, what are you going to do?
Do you think Yolcik's
You going to play Patches from hand?
Do you think Yolcik's seen him staring at him from time to time?
I don't know. If he has, he's got to shut it out of his mind.
Would that make you nervous? If you were playing Pavel right now and he kept looking at you.
I don't know if nervous is the right word. I think frightened is more appropriate. Did you see him slam that Doomhammer on the beach earlier?
He bent the handle.
He did.
This is a fairly frightening combination here for Pavel, but he's got both backstabs in hand, and he's got Edwin Van Cleef. He actually kind of wanted Yolcik to play something like this. He knows there's no sap in Yolcik's deck. Back-to-back backstabs. Dagger's going to take out Patches. 6/6 Edwin Van Cleef.
And he's got minions to follow it up. Barnes on 4, Azure Drake on 5. He's got a bunch more spells in his deck than Yolcik.
Yolcik's in a heap of trouble, TJ. He just drew a Murloc War Leader. He's got Shadow Step. He got Eye of Blackpaw off of the Swashbuckler. None of these cards are very effective in this matchup. Pavel's playing a much quicker game than that.
So many options.
He just has to play a 3-3 this turn. And I feel like it's got to be War Leader. It does provide a little bit of a threat on the board.
I don't, like, the SI7 agent does have some argument here. If Yolsik draws Bluegill War Leader, maybe then he can use a combination of those. I'm sorry, Bluegill Warrior, he can use a combination of those to kill. But if he draws Bluegill Warrior and Pavel attacks the Murloc War Leader, he's got it to kill, or he can just follow up with it afterwards. The problem is that Pavel's going to keep adding minions to board, and Edwin Van Cleave just got a free pickup.
And again, you know, to sort of reiterate this deck from Yolsik, it really doesn't run too many spells. It doesn't have any saps. It has 2 Eviscerates, but that's about it. Cold Bloods aren't going to do well.
Gets picked up. And there's no Band of Knives in here. There's actually no way for Yolsik to deal damage to stealth minions. He has actual 0 ways to interact with them. Very few classes do. But in this spot, Pavel is going to look for a way to push damage. It may take him a turn or so to get that set up. But once again, he is Yolsik looking like he's a couple turns away from checkmate.
Yeah, Pavel, with a huge lead, you do need to sort of think about, well, how do I lose from a favorable position? Sometimes it can't be about how do I win, because Azure Drake can be threatening. But he's thinking through the deck list right now. He's like, what punishes me for just going for an aggressive play and pushing a whole ton of damage? And I can't think of too many.
Some weird Cold Blood setup, maybe?
Yeah. Well, he's going to go for Barnes. There's a few situations here that could be good for him. He picks up one Gadgetzan Auctioneer.
Oh my god!
And there it is. And now that is an automatic reach for the Conceal. That's 14 damage. That stealth. He picks up a prep, so next turn he's going to be able to start digging through his deck for more spells. This game could be over next turn.
Cold Blood, Eviscerate. Both of those end the game. Pavel's got minimum 4 draws next turn to find one of those 2.
Minimum. It is very likely.
Leroy Jenkins as well will end it. So that's 5 cards and 4 draws. This is how desperate Yolsik is. Can I find anything from Swashbuckler that changes this?
He can't even play Vanish now. He needed Vanish from the... No, it didn't matter. He wouldn't even have enough mana to Vanish if he had picked up Swashbuckler. And that's it! Yolsik concedes, and Pavel takes the sweep 4-0 to move on to the decider match of Group C, which means that Yolsik has been eliminated from the Winter Championship.
And what can you do in Yolsik's spot? His decks weren't providing. Pavel had him under pressure the entire time. This was just a beating, and sometimes that happens to you. Pavel got great draws, and he piloted them well afterwards.
Yeah, and we said it throughout the series. Pavel started his World Championship run last year with a loss in round 1, and then he just continued to dominate throughout the rest of the tournament. Are we going to see a repeat of that? We'll have to see. We still have 2 more days of competition left, even after today. There's lots of Hearthstone coming up. There's the Group C bracket, so Pavel will face off against Doc Pone. This will be the first time both these two have gone up against each other. But that's got to be a huge vote of confidence for Pavel with a 4-0 sweep over Yolsik. But with some words with our winner, Rachel is standing by on stage.
Whew, thank you, guys. Pavel, you scared me. You know I put my packs on you. And I was a little worried that I wasn't going to get to talk to you up here today. Were you at any point worried that you weren't going to move on from groups?
Yeah, I also bet packs on myself because I want to get free packs as well. So yeah, of course I was worried about that because I won't get spotted second. I mean in next World Championship, and for that I need not only make groups, I also need to win at least 1 match in playoff. So now I need to win 2 matches in a row, and I will be happy with this result.
How much pressure do you feel to live up to this reputation of world champion all the time?
Yeah, in this match I stayed calm. Yeah, I just don't think about these things and to not feel extra pressure.
Do you have any tips for resetting after that loss earlier today to LVGE? Were you able to pull it all together, and how did you do that?
The best reset is just time. So I just hung out a little bit on the beach, get some food, socialize with other players, and practice before my next match.
All right, that healing power of the Bahamas Beach did a lot for your game. Well, congratulations, Pavel. You'll be moving on, and I'm going to give it back to the casters.
He was standing on that beach.